All right, joining us now, we have a lot to get to tonight. The author of the book, The Case Against the Democratic House Impeaching Trump, Harvard Professor Alan Dershowitz, and also Fox News correspondent at large, Geraldo Rivera. You know, Geraldo, you were so passionate last night, and you reminded me of the police superintendent. I said last night, I thought that was the best news conference I watched in my career. He was so good in describing the impact when people lie.
First of all, I'm honored to be on with two of my best friends, you and Professor Dershowitz. It's an honor. I thought that the police superintendent in Chicago, Eddie Johnson, saved the reputation of the city, the sane voice to the partisans on both sides in this troubling issue. I think we cannot lose sight of what this is. This is a cynical, selfish, exploitive young man who shamed the history of true victims of race crimes in this country by his cavalier staging of this event. It reminds me a lot of O.J. Simpson, not as serious because no one died, but the mountain of evidence against him and the bizarre nature of the partisans who are continuing to support him in the face of this mountain of evidence is similar. There's no logic to it. It's infuriating. Smollett is going to get his just desserts. I think that people will abandon him eventually, but it is pretty clear from the evidence as we know it that this man sought to exploit the racial tensions in this country for his own financial gain. It's disgusting. It's low down and dirty. I don't think his career. What I would do were I him is just go to a tropical island, chill out for a couple of years, then come back and crawl on your belly and apologize to the American people.
He's now got to be tried, and there might be a federal aspect to this coming not long after. Professor, I'm very consistent. The evidence now mounting and mounting and mounting, and the videos and everything associated with it. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, the hard left is perfectly willing to demand the presumption of innocence, as they should, for Smollett. But they weren't prepared to give a presumption of innocence to the non-existent MAGA hat-wearing assailants. They immediately assumed the story was true, immediately convicted these people in the court of public opinion. And so what we see is the presumption of innocence, like so many other aspects of our life, is selectively employed by the left against the right, sometimes by the right against the left. We have to have a presumption of innocence on both sides, and you in your monologue set that out correctly. You said we have to assume Smollett to be innocent, but look at the evidence. It is certainly mounting. Now, I believe strongly, because I've been a victim myself of this, when somebody deliberately frames somebody and deliberately makes up a false report of anything, that person must go to jail. The integrity of the system demands that deliberate false reporters, not if you made an act, not if you made a mistake, an honest mistake, but deliberate false reporters must go to jail. You know, the Bible says that if you testify falsely against somebody, you get the penalty that that person would have gotten
one of the
had
Big
he
Ten,
been
Professor.
guilty. And if you apply that here, you would see that this guy should get the penalty that the assailants would have gotten if they were real and existed.
But what is really...
I really am worried, though, Professor, and I don't want Geraldo to weigh in. There really are racist, vile, vicious racists in this country. There are horrible people that would hurt innocent people because of their sexual orientation. There are... Look at a congresswoman that is a virulent anti-Semite that sits on a foreign affairs committee still. Now, that's unacceptable to me, Professor.
It's not acceptable to me. You know, when you hear somebody say that the MAGA hat is a trigger, that is such a phony excuse. For some people, the Star of David is a trigger. For some people, the cross is a trigger. For some people, seeing a gay couple together or an interracial couple is a trigger.
Mind your own business.
We don't accept people who are racist based on triggers that they don't like. That's just wrong.
And what is unforgivable is that all of the smart people who are blind to the evidence because it fits their political narrative to think that the original fake story was true. They hate Trump so much that they're seeking to justify even this absolutely impossible story.
All right, amazing commentary from both of you.
And today it's used against them. Tomorrow it could be used against you.
True. You're right, 100%. Very well said, both of you. Thank you.
Hassan Shibley's with us now, the attorney representing the Thana family. And, sir, good morning to you, and thank you for your time today.
Good morning.
Mike Pompeo calls your client a terrorist and says she's not coming home. How do you respond to that?
Well, to be clear, I represent the family. The family reached out to me when they first learned that their daughter was brainwashed and ran away to join this monstrous group of criminal thugs known as ISIS. So immediately I advised the family and helped the family to reach out to the FBI and Department of Homeland Security to report that Huda ran away to Syria and to see what we can do to intervene to stop that and to make sure she's brought back through the legal system and frankly that she's held accountable for her actions. And people shouldn't forget that Huda herself right now and her family are not saying that she should just come back home, that she should get a free pass. Everybody acknowledges that what she did was horrible, disgusting, unacceptable, but we also acknowledge that America is great because of our legal system. And as an American citizen, Huda herself and her family simply want to face our legal system. She's willing to pay whatever debts she has to society. She's even willing to spend years behind bars if that's the debt she owes. And she wants to speak out to ensure that other young women are not brainwashed and manipulated into committing the same horrible mistakes that she's done. And I think what's most mind-boggling is it appears that right now the Trump administration simply want to give her a free pass. They're wrongfully claiming that she's not a citizen and therefore not subject to U.S. jurisdiction. In other words, that she can go on free, and she herself is trying to turn herself in to our legal system to face the consequences for her actions.
Let's go ahead and work through the case with Sandra and me here one at a time. You mentioned brainwashed twice. That would be your defense then, clearly, correct?
Well, I'm not defending her. I'm not her criminal defense attorney. You know, what she did is unacceptable.
The suggestion from your answer is that she did not willingly leave, but she was manipulated.
No, she's accountable for her actions. She's accountable for her actions. She has to answer, as I mentioned right in 2014 when she first left, she's going to have to answer to God for her decisions. However, I do believe manipulation played a role. I spoke to the Department of Homeland Security officials who told me, Hassan, what happened to Huda is no different than what happens to thousands of young, naive, foolish youth in America that get targeted by sex traffickers, violent gangs, and other hate groups who manipulate them and brainwash them into committing very foolish, horrible things that they're still accountable for, but that absent that manipulation probably would not have committed.
Hassan, there's been multiple things published that she said during her time with ISIS, and correct me if any of these are not wrong. She said she was going to burn her passport. She urged U.S. jihadis to commit massacres back home in America. She also tweeted out urging followers in the U.S. to, quote, rent a big truck and drive all over them at Memorial Day parades and to attack then President Barack Obama. With those words, why does she expect sympathy from Americans?
Well, I don't think she expects sympathy. She is very remorseful for whatever disgusting tweets and positions she put out. It's very important to note that we don't know what she actually tweeted herself of her own free volition versus what came out when she lost control over her social media to that group. But nonetheless, I mean, I'll be very frank. I remember when she called me and her parents infidels, because we reported her to law enforcement and told her that going there is wrong and is un-Islamic and is immoral and is inhumane and is wrong. So she really did go off the deep end, and she's tremendously remorseful, and she's not asking for a free pass. She wants to come back, she wants to pay her debt to society, and she wants to speak out to ensure other people don't repeat those same mistakes.
She's 24 now. She left when she was 19. Are you saying you've been with her family, representing her family for 5 years now, since the beginning?
I've been in touch with the family since the beginning on assisting them to see how she can find a way to legally turn herself in.
When's the last time you spoke with her?
The last time I spoke with the family was very recently. I'm not getting into specifics right now on which family members we've been in touch with.
So you have not spoken. You're not confirming that you've ever spoken to her
directly. So the last time that I can comment about was when we told her that if you acknowledge your mistakes, then you need to turn yourself into American authorities. And the closest American authorities there are with the SDF, the Syrian Democratic Forces. You have to leave ISIS on your own without any support, and you have to make your way to the Syrian Democratic Forces and turn yourself in.
Okay,
and that was the last comment we had.
So she is in Syria, right? You're confirming that?
She's in northeast Syria, correct.
Northeastern Syria.
She's in northeast Syria in the hands of American allies that she turned herself into when she ran away from ISIS.
But not American forces, correct?
No, there aren't American forces easily accessible that she could have reached to, otherwise she would have turned herself into them.
How many others are being held like her there?
It's interesting. At that camp, I believe she's just one of 2 individuals who have American citizenship. There is another camp that has dozens of other Americans. But there's a lot of Europeans right now. Yes, there's a lot of Europeans. And that's not a huge number if you think about it. Over the last 5 years, there's only about a few dozen similar situated individuals. I wish it was zero. And that's why when she went out, we went out publicly, very ferociously condemning ISIS as deviants, as heretics who have committed horrible crimes against humanity, crimes against the Syrian people. I myself am of Syrian descent. I was born in Syria. They've destroyed my country.
Yeah, we reported a few days ago about hundreds that Americans are trying to return them to their home countries in Europe. But that's the first I've heard about dozens of Americans. So, Sandra, continue.
Hassan,
right. Go ahead.
You have said that the government needs to engage her, and I'm using your own words, but not just her, all these people who joined ISIS from the West. Are you suggesting that you're making the case that she could come home and help the U.S. government with what she has learned by joining ISIS?
I'm suggesting that she may have very valuable intelligence that the United States government can benefit from, and it's mind-boggling to me. Look, the most important thing, I got 3 kids in this country. I want them to grow up proud and safe as Americans, as young Muslims, proud of their faith, proud of their identity, proud of their citizenship. And the last thing I need is some scumbag monster hurting people in the name of my religion. That is disgusting and really something that as American Muslims we're always terrified of. So let's be real here. She was interviewed by ABC News, by The Guardian, by the New York Times, and the FBI. I personally called them. I said, listen, we know where she is, and she's ready to speak with you. She's ready to collaborate. She's ready to turn herself in. You should at least go question her, see if she has intelligence that can protect American lives. And they failed to act on it, and that's really concerning.
They're saying she's not a U.S. citizen, born in Hackensack, New Jersey, because her father was a diplomat, and there's the debate right now as to the timing and all this. Appreciate you coming on and talking with us today. We'll see where it goes, but Mike Pompeo was very specific, as you heard him earlier today, sir.
Thank you, and God bless you.
He calls her a terrorist and says she will not come back home. Last comment.
Well, we have a legal process. We have a legal process, and she's not asking for a free pass. She wants to turn herself in and be held accountable to our laws. We don't need to circumvent our laws. Our laws are great. Let's stand by them. God bless you. God bless America.
To what extent is she willing to come home and be punished, Hassan? I mean, life in prison. She's still willing to come back if that's the case?
Yes, yes. She literally expressed fear that she will likely, possibly, may have to face decades in jail, potentially. And she's still willing to come back to America. She said, listen, I could have ran away to anywhere else. I could have tried to disappear. I didn't. I realized I was so wrong in my ways that I want to publicly testify how evil ISIS is, and I want to turn myself in, and I'm willing to pay the price for my crimes.
Hassan Shibli, thank you for your time, the attorney for the family. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.